Hello everyone and welcome to episode 4 of From Beginning to Everlasting. In last week's story we learned of how God kept his promise to Abraham. Abraham and Sarah thought that they were far too old to have a baby of their own, but God gave them a son called Isaac. Isaac grew up to have children of his own. He had twins called Jacob and Esau, and today we're going to think a little bit about Jacob's family. Jacob had sons. He didn't have one son, or two, or three, or four, or five. He had 12 sons. One of the sons was Jacob's favourite. His name was Joseph, and his father gave him a beautiful coat of many colours. How do you think his brothers felt? They were jealous, and soon they would have another reason to be even more jealous of Joseph. Joseph said to them, "Let me tell you about some dreams that I have had. In these dreams, I am the greatest and all of you bow down to me." The brothers were not very happy. They hated Joseph. And one day when they were out in the fields, Jacob sent Joseph out to his brothers. When they saw him coming, they said, "Here's the dreamer coming," and they plotted to kill him. Joseph was thrown into a pit, but then instead of killing him, his brothers spotted some people travelling along the road, and they sold Joseph to these people as a slave for 20 pieces of silver. Joseph was taken off to a country called Egypt. Joseph's brothers took his coat, they dipped it in the blood of an animal, and they took it home to their father, and they told their father a lie. They told their father that Joseph must have been attacked by a wild animal. You can imagine how sad his father must have been. Life as a slave in Egypt would have been very difficult for Joseph. He worked for a man named Potiphar, and Potiphar trusted Joseph with lots of important jobs. But one day, Joseph was blamed for something that he didn't do, and he was thrown in jail. Life was very difficult for Joseph, but God was with him. While he was in jail, he met a baker and a cupbearer, and one night both of these men had dreams. And God helped Joseph to explain what these men's dreams meant. Later, when the cupbearer was released from jail, Joseph said, "Will you remember me?" And he hoped that the cupbearer would tell someone about him, and then Joseph would be released from jail as well. But 2 years passed, and nothing happened. One night, Pharaoh had a dream that really worried him and troubled him. He asked everyone that he could think of if they could explain what this dream would mean, but nobody could. Then Pharaoh's cupbearer remembered Joseph. Joseph was brought from the prison to Pharaoh, and Pharaoh told him about the dream. And God helped Joseph to explain to Pharaoh what his dream meant. Joseph told Pharaoh that his dream meant that there would be 7 years where there would be lots of food in Egypt. But it would be important to keep some of that food and to store it away, because there then would be 7 years of famine where there wouldn't be enough food for the people to eat. Pharaoh was delighted that Joseph was able to explain this dream, and Pharaoh gave Joseph a very important job. He was in charge of the whole country. He was like the prime minister. When the famine came, Joseph's brothers and their father were running out of food. They didn't have enough to eat. So their father sent them to Egypt because he had heard that there was lots of food there. When they arrived in Egypt, they didn't know that it was actually their brother Joseph standing in front of them, because of course many years had passed. How do you think they felt when they found out that this really important man in Egypt was Joseph? They were very, very worried. They thought that Joseph was going to do something terrible to them because of the terrible thing that they had done to him. What do you think happened? Joseph didn't do anything terrible to his brothers. He said to them, "You meant it for evil against me, but God meant it for good." Joseph knew that God had sent him into Egypt to make sure that God's people would be kept safe. God had a plan for his life. God was at work in all parts of Joseph's life, even in those really difficult things that happened. And the same is true for you and I. The Bible tells us that in all things, God works for the good of those who love him and who are called according to his purpose. What does that mean? Whenever I think of that verse, I think about playing the piano. On the piano, there are some notes that don't sound so great when they're played on their own. There are other notes that sound lovely when they're played on their own. But both types of notes can be put together to create a beautiful piece of music. Because our world is broken and scarred by sin, there will be times when you feel sad or worried or scared. Those times are like the notes on the piano that don't sound so good by themselves. Then, of course, there'll be times when you feel happy, when great things happen. And those times are like the notes on the piano that sound lovely by themselves. When someone is putting together a piece of music, they can see the big picture. They see how all those notes go together to create a beautiful piece of music. And if you have trusted Jesus to forgive you for your sin and you're part of God's family, you can know that God is working in all things for your good and for his glory. He has a plan. His ways are best, and you can always trust him.